Welcome to the Wisdom That Breathes channel. Across all our platforms, we try to share wisdom which is relevant and accessible to everyone. But on this particular platform, we go deeper into some of the ancient principles found within the scriptures. If you find some of the terminology difficult or inaccessible, then go over to our Keshava Swami YouTube channel where you'll be able to find other content which is perhaps more relatable. Thank you and enjoy the wisdom that breathes. In different places in his life, he was in Sridham Mayapur, and later in his life he also went to Jagannath Puri, and periodically Bhaktivinoda Thakur would also go to Sri Vrindavan Dham, and he stayed in different places. If you go today to Radha Kund, then just behind Radha Kund, Shyama Kund is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house, and he stayed there periodically. And he actually writes about his realizations while he was staying on the banks of Radha Kund. He actually reveals to the world his own vision of Radha Kund is a very different vision to what many of us may see. He was really penetrating a different layer of reality in the Dham. And so he writes this beautiful song about Krishna and his different personalities that Krishna assumes and all the activities in which he enlivens his devotees. So we'll begin by singing this song today. Yashomati Nandana Rajabharana Gara. Sorry, too high. Yashomati Nandana Rajabharana Gara Gokula Ranjana Kana Yashomati Nandana Bhaja Yashomati Nandana Brajabharana Gara Gokula Ranjana Kana Gopi Paranadhana Madana Manohara Gopi Paranadhana Gopi Paranadhana Madana Manohara Kali Yadamana Vidhana Kali Yadamana Vidhana Amala Harina Mamiya Vilasa Amala Harina Mamiya Vilasa Vipina Purandara Navina Nagara Bara Vamshivadana Suvasha
Vipina Purandara Navina Nagara Bara Vamshivadana Subhasha Raja Jana Palana Asurakula Nasana Raja Jana Palana Asurakula Nasana Nanda Godhana Rakhwala Godhana Rakhwala Govinda Madhava Navanita Tashkara Govinda Madhava Navanita Tashkara Sundarananda Gopala Sundarananda Gopala Yamuna Tatachara Gopi Vasana Hara Rasarasika Kripa Moya Yamuna Tatachara Yamuna Tatachara Gopi Vasana Hara Rasarasika Kripa Moya Shri Radha Vallabha Vrindavan Natabara Shri Radha Vallabha Vrindavan Natabara Bhakti Vinodashraya Bhakti Vinodashraya Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Vrindavan Dham, Vrindavan Dham, Vrindavan Dham, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Radhe Shyam, Radhe Shyam, Radhe Shyam, Jaya Radhe Shyam. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Vaishnav Thakur, Vaishnav Thakur, Vaishnav Thakur, Jaya Vaishnav Thakur. Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Rijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Krishna, everyone. So thank you. This is our final session on the triggers of transformation. And today I decided to begin with this song, talking all about the activities and the pastimes of Krishna. It's said that Krishna's pastimes are Nitya Leela, they're always going on. This can be understood in different dimensions. Krishna's pastimes are Nitya Leela because they're always going on in the spiritual world. But Krishna's pastimes are also Nitya Leela because they're always going on somewhere in the material world. But Krishna's pastimes are also Nitya Leela because they're always going on in the hearts of the devotees. And therefore we find great devotees are visualizing Krishna's pastimes. We have someone like Jiva Goswami who is writing a commentary on the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and he is revealing conversations that even Sukadev Goswami has not revealed. Because the great devotees are visualizing, they are seeing Krishna. It is not just something they're reading, it's something they're experiencing. So yesterday, Satyananda Maharaj was in his class talking about this prayer, Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami, written by Shankaracharya, in which he's praying for the vision that may the Lord please become visible before me. And if you remember, he was mentioning how the devotees went to Srila Prabhupada and asked, is this a bona fide prayer? Because we always hear that you should not try to see Krishna, but rather you should act in such a way that Krishna will want to see you. And does anyone remember what Prabhupada's answer was? Is it a bona fide prayer? Yes? No? Yes. And what was the answer that Srila Prabhupada gave? Right. Yeah, if you don't experience Krishna, if you don't see Krishna, how you will carry on, how you will have the enthusiasm. So here we are talking in this whole seminar about transformation, and probably the most transformational thing in someone's life is if they get a darshan of Krishna. Put your hand up if you received a darshan of Krishna in your life. Oh, everyone's very humble. I'm sure everyone has. And there is something very, very special when we read the Bhagavatam which triggers the darshan of Krishna. There's something which if a devotee embraces, then somehow Krishna has no choice but to look. And this is when there is intensity. Yes, that word we don't like. Where there is intensity, where there is a great desperation, where someone makes a very, very special effort, then definitely Krishna will come. Can you think of a story in the Bhagavatam in which someone, by their intensity, by their deep desire, by their willingness to place themselves in a situation which was incredibly precarious, and by undergoing unspeakable austerities, Krishna appeared before their eyes? Oh, yes. We are on the same page. So yes, we are talking about the triggers of transformation. These are some of the ones we've discussed in previous days. And today we are moving on to talk about transformation by intensity. This is perhaps one of the most powerful ways in which to transform one's heart. If one makes a very, very special endeavor, if one embraces a certain level of intensity in their spiritual journey, it's mentioned Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavitam Ati Kriyatam Yadi Kutopi Labhyate Tatra Lolyam Apimulyame Kalam Janma Koti Sukrate Nalabhyate. This is the verse from which Srila Prabhupada actually coined the phrase Krishna consciousness. And in this verse, it's being explained by the Goswamis that there's only one price to purchase Krishna consciousness. Different prices are given actually in Shastra. Sometimes it said faith, sometimes it said other things. In this particular verse it says there's a mulyam ekalam, there's only one price, and that is lolyam, an intensity and a greed. And so here we have Dhruva, and all of you know the story of Dhruva, who, the son of Uttanapad, who tried to crawl on his father's lap, but who was chastised by his stepmother, or you can say, the co-wife of his father, Suruchi, who told him that you don't have the qualification to sit on the lap of your father. If you want to get that qualification, if you want to get that privilege, if you want to achieve that, which is very difficult to achieve, then you must take birth again from a qualified mother. And Dhruva decided to go to do that, to do whatever austerity, to do whatever it could take to achieve that goal that he wanted. And we know this was this indication was given to him by his own mother, Suniti. It's interesting, these names in the Bhagavatam are also very, very significant. Suruchi means taste or natural kind of inclination. Suruchi indicates the path of enjoyment. And Suniti, his own mother's name, Dhruva's mother's name, Niti refers to wisdom or the right path. So Suruchi represents the easy path, the immediately tasteful path. And Suniti represents the wise path, the immediately difficult path. Suniti's son is Dhruva, and therefore Dhruva, his name represents determination. And Suruchi's son is Uttama. Uttama can have different meanings, but one meaning of Uttama is enjoyment. So, if one follows the easy path, the path of least resistance, the path of taste, then they will get enjoyment. If one follows the path of wisdom, the difficult path, the path of obstacles, the path of discomfort for a higher cause, then one will require determination. Uttama's fate is that ultimately, later on we hear in the story, he dies. So therefore, if you follow the path of Suruchi, then eventually you may get some enjoyment in the interim, but eventually you'll die. If one follows Suniti, the difficult path, and one embraces that with determination, then eventually, as we know, Dhruva achieves the supreme destination of life and takes his mother with him. And therefore, the lesson is loud and clear. Don't give up what you want most for what feels good now. Don't just follow your loudest desire, follow your deepest desire. And in order to do that, one must embrace a certain intensity, one must take a risk. So Dhruva took a risk. Narad tested him. Are you sure you really want to do this? Are you sure you want to go to the forest to find Vishnu? Narad tried to discourage him, but he continued on. Dhruva went to Madhuvan. You can go to that beautiful place today, known as Dhruvatil, where Dhruva situated himself in penances. He said that while he was doing his penances, all the demigods were coming to him, trying to divert him, trying to discourage him. One demigod was saying, "Don't you know there are ferocious animals here?" He ignored it. Another demigod came, "Don't you know that no one has been successful in this path?" He ignored it. He just continued on. And Dhruva embraced the level of intensity which was unspeakable. He began by, in the first month of his austerity, only eating fruit every 3 days. By the second month of his austerity, he was only eating dry grass every 6 days. By the third month of his austerity, he was only drinking water every 9 days. By the fourth month of his austerity, he was only breathing every 12 days. Usually our trajectory is the complete opposite. We start high and we're going to go down. His one was going up. By the fifth month, he had become so austere that no fruits, no grass, no water, not even any air. He was just existing. And it said the pressure of his austerity was bringing the universe out of balance. By his intensity, he attracted the attention of the Supreme Lord. And then eventually the Supreme Lord came, Prishnigarbha. And here we see in this beautiful picture, the Lord placed his conch shell on Dhruva's head. Dhruva became enlivened. Yonda pravishta mama vacham imam prashuptam. He said, I was speechless seeing you, but now you've touched me with your conch shell. He began offering very, very beautiful prayers. And in his prayers, he came to the conclusion, Sthana bilasi tapasi stitoham tvam praptavan deva muni draguyam kacham vichinvan api devya ratnam swamin kritartosmi vadam nayache. Sthana abilas, I had a desire to have a kingdom greater than my predecessors. And therefore, what did I do? Tapasi stitoham. I situated myself in tapasya. Tapa means austerity. Tapa means heat, burning. So austerity sometimes feels like that, a bit burning. If someone's very austere, we say they're fired up. That's what tapasya is. And then he said, Tvam praptavan deva muni draguyam. And by my austerity, I gained you. I saw you. Who even the devas, the demigods and the munis, sometimes they don't even get the opportunity to see you. Kacham vichinvan, he says, now I realize I was searching for broken glass. Api divya ratnam. And instead what I've discovered is a beautiful, resplendent, shining jewel. Swamin kritarto. Smivaram nayache. I don't want anything more. I'm totally satisfied now. The Lord said, no, but you asked, I have to give you. And then the Lord gave him all facility. Dhruva was intense. Dhruva went out of the comfort zone and Dhruva embraced tapasya. And therefore, without tapasya, it's very difficult to experience transformation. Without taking a risk, it will be very, very difficult to see Krishna. And therefore, let me share this very beautiful verse with you. This is a verse which appears in the second canto. Brahmaji is in the universe. He has no idea. Who am I? Where am I? What am I supposed to do? He's given a project. He has no idea. And then all he hears is the words, tapa, 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 do austerity. Sometimes it's like that in ISKCON. You get a project and you're like, where's the funds? Tapa. Where's the help? Where's the manpower? Tapa. You just have to do the austerity. So Brahmaji realizes, okay, I got to engage in austerity. And then later on, this realization comes from Brahmaji, who engages in austerity. So you can repeat after me. Srajami tapasai vedam grasami tapasa puna bibharmi tapasa vishvam viryam me duscharan tapa. There's a lot of tapasya in this verse. I create this cosmos by such penance. I maintain it by the same energy, and I withdraw it all by the same energy. Therefore, the potent power is penance only. Now I remember this verse. It always stuck in my memory. Because I remember on the first book marathon I ever went on, we were traveling. I was not a book distributor. I still struggle, although I did it for quite some time. For me, book distribution was very difficult. I mean, to stop people in the middle of the street is just like, it's totally not me. So here I was on a marathon, and it was the morning, we were preparing to go out, and it's, you're just dragging your feet to like not go out. And in this particular morning, it was even more austere because the place we were staying in, there was no heating. The heating somehow had just failed. So here we were we were staying in a Hindu temple somewhere, and there was no heating. I was dreading going out on book distribution that day. And to make matters worse, we looked out of the window and it was raining. It was cold. And if cold and rain is not enough, it was also windy. This is the worst combination for book distribution. Cold, rain, and windy. So when you're in that kind of situation, the only solace is prasadam. So prasadam is the highlight of the day, the only solace. So we sat down for prasadam. And on this particular day, it wasn't the best cook. Let's just put it that way. So the menu wasn't so elaborate. It was boiled vegetables. And on this particular day, the devotee had spaced out and overboiled the vegetables. So we basically had, it was almost like the Brahma Jyoti in front of us. Like everything had mixed together. So it was one of those mornings where just everything was failing. And as you do when you're on Sankirtan, we always hear a Bhagavatam class while we're taking prasadam. So here it was. And on this particular morning, this was the verse. And I remember it to this day. His Grace Ravindra Swarup Prabhu was giving the class. So he read this verse. So the tapa message was already coming from Krishna. But then Prabhupada drove it home in the purport. When we read this purport, I mean, we nearly fell. We weren't sitting on any chairs, but if we were, we would have fell off our chairs. We read this purport and we read it, and we heard it, because someone was playing on the phone. We were like, rewind that. What did Prabhupada just say? So this is what Prabhupada said. In executing penance, one must be determined to return home back to Godhead, and must decide to undergo all types of tribulations for that end. Even for material prosperity, name and fame, one has to undergo severe types of penance. Otherwise, no one can become an important figure in this material world. Why then would there not be severe types of penance for the perfection of devotional service? Okay, Prabhupada. the message was coming through, but then the next line drove home the point even more. An easygoing life, an attainment of perfection in transcendental realization cannot go together. The Lord is more clever than any living entity, and therefore he wants to see how painstaking the devotee is in devotional service. The order is received from the Lord, either directly or through the bona fide spiritual master, and to execute that order, however painstaking, is the severe type of penance. One who follows the principle rigidly is sure to achieve success in attaining the Lord's mercy. So it's very beautiful how Prabhupada, he just brings this out in such a powerful way. That yes, sometimes we have a very romantic idea of spiritual life, but we have to understand there's a lot of discipline, there's a lot of determination, there's a lot of intensity that one also has to embrace. And tapasya, that part of spiritual life we also cannot ignore. And therefore one who makes a special endeavor, they see Krishna, just like Dhruva made that endeavor. I want to share a video with you of a beautiful memory by Shyam Sundar Prabhu, in which he really brings home very, very beautifully how this spirit of coming out of the comfort zone, of taking a risk, of embracing intensity, how that really attracts the attention of the Lord. So, can I show this video? Yes. Okay, hopefully the sound will work. No, the sound doesn't work. Okay. Shall I just put a mic here? Will that work? No? Sorry, technical difficulties. So this is Shyam Sundar Prabhu. He's explaining how in the early days the devotees were ready to embrace any kind of austerity, any kind of intensity, whatever it required to fulfill the desires of Srila Prabhupada. And in this particular memory, he's talking about how in London they had obviously moved into Berry Place, and it was a very, very difficult situation. They didn't have any money. They didn't have any means of support. They had no kind of definite idea of how they would maintain themselves. But they just kept pushing on. They just kept continuing on because it was the order of Srila Prabhupada, and because they very, very much wanted to please him in that way. And in this memory, he's explaining how that intensity of desire and that willingness to take a risk, how that so much attracted divine intervention, and how Krishna became very, very much present through that endeavor that they were making. Shall I try? Okay, let's pray. We lived a few blocks from the temple, and one time there was no money for rent. I mean, I was working as a carpenter and not making very much and supporting a family, and a few of the other devotees, like Jayananda was a taxi driver and he was giving all his money, and a few other devotees had jobs, but maybe less than 10%. Everyone else was a hippie, you know. So there was never enough money because we were feeding everybody on the street every day, and there was rent to pay and so on. And gas to put in our cars to go out and do programs and so on. So we were really in a bind. There was no money for rent, and we were behind about 2 months, and we were in very grave danger of being evicted. The landlord had severely gotten down on us. And Malti and I walked out on the street, on Ashbury Street, in front of our place there, one morning early to go to the temple, walk to the temple from Kirtan. And there were all these $100 bills blowing down the sidewalk. One after another. We just started running around the street picking up $100 bills. There wasn't a person on the street. No one ever figured out where that came from. But these kind of things, I could always hearken back to the magic days of Prabhupada. These are kind of things we began to expect of Krishna. Prabhupada, another thing he inculcated for us from an early day is that if you take a risk for Krishna and stick your neck out and spread Krishna consciousness, Krishna must help you personally. And those who see Krishna closest take the biggest risk for him. And we tested that to the max, and it worked. We got to see Krishna. We got to see $100 bills rolling down the street. This spirit has died down. This spirit has died down. We're too comfortable. Shyam Sundar Prabhu ki. It's a very beautiful, again, talking about this being comfortable in Krishna consciousness. Mother Yamuna, who went with, they all went together to London. she also expressed this very beautiful realization. We didn't know what we were doing, but we were just enthusiastic to try. That's quite something. So that is what I want you to try and catch. That ray, that moonbeam of Krishna magic that allows you to do things that you never thought you could do. They are far away from your comfort zone. But just because you love your Guru Maharaj, he said to do it. And with his blessings, a lame man can walk over mountains. A dumb man can speak, and a blind man can see. That is the mercy factor. Back to the big, huge mercy factor. Very, very beautiful. So the other day we were talking about transformation by issue, and we were talking about how, oh God, my technology is not working. Sorry, let me just try this again. We were talking about transformation of issue by the other day, and I was explaining how there are different ways in which we try to find comfort in this world. Sorry if I'm can't. Let me do that. Okay, let's see. Oh no, it's not working. I don't know why it's not working today. Okay. What to do? Out of the comfort zone. Is it something to do with that?
Yeah, maybe it's like try Bluetooth. The Bluetooth settings.
So we were talking yesterday about how, on that day, of how there are different ways to be comfortable. One way is we try to be comfortable in material life. Later on, we try to be comfortable in spiritual life, but then what we ultimately realize is that these two situations don't bring any comfort. And therefore, we have to ultimately find comfort in Krishna consciousness. So I was explaining in that diagram how to go from one to the other, you have to experience some discomfort. If you remember that diagram. No?
Which, do you notice me?
Oh. It's connected.
Oh, no, it's connected.
Okay, let's try again. So, this one. Oh, there you go. Thank you. So we were talking about this. Sometimes we try and be comfortable in material life, and then we realize that doesn't work. So then we try later on to be comfortable in spiritual life. But then we realize even that there's no comfort, even in the situations we create for our spiritual life, and therefore ultimately Krishna is helping us to find a situation in which we're comfortable in actual Krishna consciousness. That's an internal type of comfort, which comes from actually being connected with the divine. And what we talked about is how to go from one to the other, we have to experience some discomfort. It's not that Krishna wants us to be uncomfortable in life, but what Krishna is doing is sending uncomfortable situations so that we get to a higher level of comfort where we reach ultimate comfort. And therefore, issues come because Krishna wants us to experience some discomfort. Therefore, issues come. However, there is another way to experience discomfort. You don't have to wait for an issue to come. What you can do is embrace intensity. Intensity is a voluntary type of discomfort that you can embrace that can take you to a higher level of consciousness, which ultimately leads you to Krishna consciousness. We have to experience discomfort, most of us, to go from one to the other. And when that happens involuntarily, it's called issues. And when it happens voluntarily, it's someone who embraces intensity, who takes a risk, who goes out of the comfort zone. And so this is another trigger of transformation, that if one becomes enthusiastic to embrace a certain tapasya and intensity, then that can lead to transformation. I'm just going a little bit quick because we have to complete this. Someone may say intensity is too much for me. Intensity sounds like insanity. It's just not my personality to do that. It's like we all have a different personality type. Like if there was a cold body of water, option 1, jump in. Option number 2, dip in your toe, your right toe, your left toe, your right leg, and slowly go in. Put your hand up if you would go for option number 1. These are the die-hard kamikazes. And put your hand up if you'd go for option number 2. Okay, I think more volunteers. Therefore, if transformation by intensity sounds too much, fear not, because the Bhagavatam also teaches us that there can be transformation. Mrigari. Mrigari means, Ari means enemy, and Mriga means animal. So Mrigari means one who was the enemy of animals. Mriga, animal. Sanskrit is very interesting language. Mriga, ga means to go. Mriga means one which goes on the land. So an animal goes on the land. Mriga. A bird is known as kaga, one which goes in the air. So if a land animal is known as a mriga, a bird is known as a kaga. Do you know what a tree is known as? Naga. No go. Ain't going anywhere. Sanskrit is very beautiful. So Mrigari, the one who was the enemy of animals. It said that once Narad Muni was on his way to Prayag. So he was walking, and as he was walking through the forests, then he came across a very, very terrible sight. As he was walking, he saw a boar, and the boar had an arrow in it. But the boar wasn't fully killed, it was just kind of struggling. That's the worst. Worse than seeing a dead animal is to see an animal struggling in its final moments. That's even more painful. He walked a little further and he saw a rabbit, and the rabbit also was just half killed. He walked further, and as he walked, he kept seeing animals which were just half killed. And as he was walking, naturally, when a human comes through the forest, then all the animals begin to scatter. And as he was walking, seeing all this terrible sight, then he came across a hunter. So this hunter looked very, very gruesome, very, very terrible. He had red eyes, he looked very aggressive, and he was angry. And he looked at Narad and he said, "Why are you coming on this path? Don't you see that by you walking here, all my prey, all the animals that I'm stalking, my lunchtime, prasadam, is running away? And why are you here? Why are you on this path anyway?" Narad Muni said to him, I'm on my way to Prayag, and I decided to come through the forest. The forest is the place where the sages reside. So I came here. This is a very wonderful place in which I can connect with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But here I've come and I've seen a terrible sight. Why are you half killing these animals? Mrigari said, "I'm a hunter. This is what I've learned my whole life. This is what I do. I survive by killing animals. What do you want me to do? I need to survive. I need to eat. And this is what I know." Narad Muni said, "That's not a problem. That's okay. I understand. You also need to eat. I need to eat. Everyone needs to eat. But can you do one thing? Instead of half killing them, can you just fully kill them?" Mrigari looked at Narad Muni, a saintly person. He wasn't expecting that instruction. Kill them fully. Mrigari said, I thought you were going to ask for something else. Narad Muni said, don't worry, I understand. You have your conditionings, whatever. At least just fully kill them so that they're not in suffering. Don't you understand when you kill them in this way and you make them suffer, in future lives they will come back and they will inflict that same suffering upon you? When Mrigari heard that, something changed in him. He looked at Narad Muni. Remember, transformation by interaction. So Narad Muni's spiritual influence began to influence him. And Mrigari underwent a transformation. And soon he realized, I don't even want to fully kill them. Maybe I shouldn't kill them at all. Narad Muni said, that would be the best, if you don't kill any animals at all. Mrigari said, but how will I do it? How will I survive? How will I eat? Narad Muni said, just break your bow. Don't worry. Just trust in the Supreme Lord. Shraddha Shabde Vishvash Kohe Sudhrida Nishchoy Krishna Bhakti Koile Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. Faith means that you have the conviction that if I do something for Krishna, Krishna will definitely, He will protect me. He will fulfill everything required in my life. So that's what Mrigari did. He broke his arrow. Narad Muni said, construct a cottage, plant a tulsi plant in front of that cottage and just chant the holy names, and don't worry, everything you need will be provided. And soon all of the surrounding people in the villages understood that the hunter Mrigari has become a sadhu. And knowing that he had become a sadhu, a saintly person, they all came to serve the saintly person, and they brought him alms and everything he required. Mrigari actually, in one sense, took the intense path. He just broke his arrow, his bow and arrow, and he said, I'll just surrender and I'll rely on the Supreme Lord. He actually took the intense path. But the interesting thing is here, Narad Muni opened up for him the incremental path. This is what the devotees do. They say, if there's something very, very far and it seems to be unreachable, unapproachable, then don't worry, do something on the way there that will take you towards that perfection. Don't constantly look for perfection. Just try to find progress in your life. And therefore, this is exactly what Krishna does in the Bhagavad Gita. Because what Krishna says to Arjuna is, he says, just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always without doubt. So Krishna tells Arjuna what is the ultimate perfection. But then Krishna says, if you can't do this, then what should you do? Does anyone remember? What's the next thing that Krishna tells Arjuna to do if he can't do this? Yes, thank you. My dear Arjuna, winner of wealth, if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then at least follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, develop a desire to attain me. Incremental progress. But Krishna says, if you can't do that, then what should you do? Then Krishna says, work for me. If you cannot practice the regulation, if you can't do sadhana bhakti, then at least try to work for me. Engage in karma yoga, because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage. And if someone says, I can't even do that, then what does Krishna say? Yeah. Then if you're unable to work in consciousness of me, do karma yoga, then at least engage in charity. Give something, become purified, at least become a little bit selfless. This is so incredible. This is why actually the Vedic theology is the most advanced theology in the world, because it's multi-level. It never tells people do this or go to hell. What it tells people is, if you can't do this, then do this. If you can't do this, then do this. Because there can also be transformation by increment, step by step. And therefore, the most sometimes the most achievable way for people to transform themselves is just by making incremental improvements. When Narad Muni spoke to Mrigari the hunter, he opened up this possibility that I'm not asking you to be perfect, but I'm just asking you to be better. So what is very much a part of the Krishna consciousness movement is the idea of making vows. Because what vows do is they basically incrementally improve a practitioner on their journey towards perfection. And so making incremental vows is very, very powerful way to transform one's consciousness. Here is an interesting quote from Bill Gates. Most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 10. Can you relate to this? Sometimes we have such a desire to achieve the perfect place where we want to be that we overestimate how quickly we can get there, and then we fail. And what we don't realize is we underestimate the incremental approach of trying to get there over a period of time and how powerful that can be to help us reach the goal. Why do you think this phenomena occurs within us, whereby we overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in 10? Why do you think this mentality is within us? We want quick results. Anything else? No patience. Yeah, same thing. We want quick results. Why else?
I think it's the mind telling that they don't hear it and reach it. But it requires intelligence to understand what you can reach it.
Yeah, the mind can't always accept the links. You know, that if I do this, then I'll get there, then I'll get there, then I'll get there, then I'll get there. The mind gets mental. Even the mind gets mental. So what happens is when we do the incremental approach, the reason why it's difficult to embrace it is not just because we're impatient, definitely we're impatient, but sometimes we don't make the links. And therefore, we don't have the conviction that if I go step by step, it's going to work out. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. Complacency. Can you explain what you mean by that? Okay, so you're saying that sometimes we may achieve something quickly, and then we just settle for that, and we don't continue working on ourselves like that. Okay, good. Yeah.
It's also based on our enjoying mentality. We want a quick solution, and we don't have
Right.
the endurance and also the mood of putting our desires back to achieve something bigger.
Yeah, we want a result. We want to see something tangible. We want to achieve that kind of esteem that I'm there. And the incremental approach doesn't always give us that esteem. Once I met an initiated devotee, and he came to me and he said, I'm not chanting 16 rounds. I said, how many are you chanting? He said, none. So then I said, okay. So we talked a little bit. Then I said to him, so can you at least chant one? And he looked at me and he goes, chant 1 round? That's embarrassing. That's what I did when I started Krishna consciousness. He goes, I can't chant 1 round. That's embarrassing. But I said, right now you're not chanting any. He said, yeah, but when I start chanting, I'll do 16. I'm not chanting 1 round. That's embarrassing. So it's a very interesting mentality. That sometimes the esteem of wanting to be at a certain point means that we don't accept the increments which will get us there because of our own ego. Any other reason why you think this phenomena is there?
Maybe I cannot keep my vows for a very long time, but at least for today, I can do it. And if
Yes.
every day, then yes.
Yeah, it's easier to vision something in a year or in a very short time because you think, let me just do it and I'll be able to do it and, I don't have to. But the idea of sustaining something for a long time is very, very, we don't like that. We don't embrace that. So, yeah.
So what we don't follow ourselves and measure ourselves as we're going along the way in 1 year, you don't even think about in 10 years. So we're not setting goal setting or holding ourselves accountable. And there's a saying that failure to prepare is preparing to fail.
Yeah.
Type thing.
Yeah, exactly. So all these reasons mean that sometimes we don't embrace the power of the incremental approach. It's very powerful. And this is actually how most people change. We wish that we had the intensity. We wish that something amazing would happen. We pray and we hope that one day something will happen. But the reality is, for most people, that's not what happens. The reality for most people, most of us, is that it's going to take a lifetime. And remember, we underestimate the power of what you can do in a lifetime. We underestimate the power of what can be done in 10 years. So therefore, our acharyas, our teachers, our scriptures are always encouraging us, make a vow. This is where we are. And when we make a vow to do something better, it doesn't matter how further it is away from where we are right now. As Vaisheshika Prabhu says, as long as it's above zero and as long as it's above zero and not less than 1. Make a vow that's above zero and not less than 1. And what that does is that takes you to a higher level. Immediately when you make a vow, you immediately begin living on a higher level than you have realization of currently. And then what a wise devotee does is, because you can easily fall, right? When you go up, you can easily fall down again. So what a devotee does is create safety nets, knowledge, understand why you're doing that. That's a safety net so that if you drop down, you'll go back up. Association. When you make a vow, make sure you surround yourself with people who will support that, so that when you're feeling like you're falling down, again you go up. Lifestyle. Embrace the right habits, the right modes of nature that will give you the strength of mind and strength of intelligence to continue on, so that if you're feeling down, you go up again. And situate yourself appropriately in Varanashram, in a service, and that peaceful situation will help you to go back up. So what happens is, we're here, then what happens is we make a vow. Don't just make the vow, also create the safety nets. Then what happens is, when you make the vow, you create the safety nets and you stay at that vow, you know what happens? You get higher taste. So now you become situated here effortlessly. And then what you do is you make another vow. And remember, when you make that next vow, make sure you create the safety nets. And when you sustain it there, you get more higher taste. And then you're situated there. And then you go higher and higher and higher. And that's basically the process of transformation by increment. I'll just finish and then I'll take questions. Is that okay? So from Mugrari, we can take this lesson, that if you can't do transformation by intensity, if that sounds too far, too unachievable, then don't underestimate the power of the trigger of increment. We're coming to the final trigger. Someone may say, you've said all of this, it all sounds good, it just doesn't work for me, it's just like it all sounds good in a class, when I go out there, it's like all hell breaks loose and I can never apply any of this stuff. I hope that won't happen. But there is one last hope. There is one last thing that could transform you, even if you're unwilling. And that is known as transformation by intrigue. Put your hand up if in your life you felt you were ever tricked by a devotee of Krishna. Yes, devotees are tricky. In the Bhagavatam 8th canto, we find this incredible pastime of how the Lord engineers an intriguing plan to draw surrender from even an unwilling soul. This is the pastime, as all of you know, of Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj had great dharma, knew the culture, and therefore when Vamandev came to the sacrificial arena and asked him for charity, then Bali Maharaj had no intention of refusing him. Sukracharya, on the other hand, his spiritual master, knew that something tricky was going on here. He knew there was an intrigue. He knew that something was going to happen which Bali Maharaj had not prepared himself for. And therefore, Sukracharya was trying to alert Bali Maharaj that there's an intrigue, there's a conspiracy going on here. You better be aware. And this is what Sukracharya tells Bali Maharaj. You can repeat after me. Esate sthanam aishwaryam Shriyam tejo yashashrutam Dasayatyachidya shakraya Maya manavako hari. This person falsely appearing as a brahmachari is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who has come in this form to take away all your land, wealth, beauty, power, fame, and education. Krishna takes away everything. After taking away everything from you, he will deliver it to Indra, your enemy. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, another beautiful purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains in this regard that the word Hari means one who takes away. If one connects himself with Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord takes away all his miseries. And in the beginning, the Lord also superficially appears to take away all his material possessions, reputation, education, and beauty. As stated here in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.88.8, Yasyaham anugranami harishye taddhanam shane. The Lord said to Maharaj Yudhisthira, the first installment of my mercy toward a devotee is that I take away all his possessions, especially his material opulence, his money. This is the special favor of the Lord toward a sincere devotee. If a sincere devotee wants Krishna above everything, but at the same time is attached to material possessions which hinder his advancement in Krishna consciousness by tactics. Krishna has tactics. By tactics, the Lord takes away all his possessions. Here, Sukracharya says that this dwarf brahmachari would take away everything. Thus, he indicates that the Lord will take away all one's material possessions and also one's mind. If one delivers his mind to the lotus feet of Krishna, Save Mana Krishna Padara Vindayo, Bhagavatam 9.4.18, one can naturally sacrifice everything to satisfy him. Although Bali Maharaj was a devotee, he was attached to material possessions, and therefore the Lord, being very kind to him, showed him special favor by appearing as Lord Vaman to take away all his material possessions and his mind as well. Krishna takes away everything, and often he'll take it away without us even knowing. Because how many of us are ready to let go? Very few. And therefore what Krishna may do is engineer a plan by intrigue to forcibly drag one to success. In the Bhagavatam, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Dyutam chalayatam asmi. Of gambling, I am cheat. There cannot be any better cheater, any better trickster, any better conspiracy maker than Krishna. Because Krishna, even if we don't want it, will arrange a plan, and Krishna's devotees are the same. They're just as tricky. They make just as powerful conspiracy theories. They do the same thing. Haridas Thakur did it to the prostitute. Because he told her, yes, yes, I will fulfill your desire. No problem. I just have to finish my rounds. Can you just sit here while I finish my rounds? He tricked her. He had no intention, but he tricked her. Mohini Murti tricked the demons. Vibhishan also tricked Ravan. Once he said Vibhishan, he came to Lanka, and all over the walls he had written Rama, Rama, Rama. So Ravan walked in, he was like, what is this? You write Rama's names all over the wall? Don't you know he's my enemy? And what did Vibhishan say? No, no. Ra means Ravan. And Ma means Mandodri. I'm glorifying you. He said, oh, you're glorifying me. Oh, now I understand. Rama, because write this everywhere. Write this everywhere. So Lord is very tricky. So everyone in the world is trying to cheat Krishna. And maybe if we're honest, even we're trying to cheat Krishna. Everyone is looking for a quick win. Like once there was a man, he was going past a shop and it said, buy anything you want and your grandson will pay the bill. I mean, that's a good advert, you know. So he went in and he loaded up the trolley and he thought, and then he came to the checkout counter. You know, the bill was huge and he just kind of strolled past the checkout counter. My grandson will pay it, no problem. And just as he was walking out, the checkout person said, hey, hey, stop. And then he slapped the bill in his hand. So the person said, what's the meaning here? It says, my grandson will pay the bill. He says, yeah, your grandson will pay this bill, but this is the bill of your grandfather. So, if you try to cheat Krishna, Krishna will cheat you. Because dyutam chalayatam asmi. And so sometimes we can just go in front of Krishna and just pray, Krishna, can you just transform me by intrigue? Can you just cheat me? Can you just send someone in my life who's going to trick me? Because otherwise, you know what? I don't think I'm ever going to do it. I don't think I have the determination. I don't have the desire. I don't have the discipline, Krishna. Krishna, please trick me. Maybe Krishna will transform you by intrigue. And if you hang around devotees long enough, the devotees, they'll trick you. If you let the devotees into your life, they'll trick you. They're like, you know, when you were a kid and you went for an injection and you really didn't, then the nurse was like, they just kind of nicely speak to you like, yeah, how you doing? How's school? And, you know, da-da-da-da-da, bang. And then it just comes in when you're least expecting it. Before you know it, it's out. And you're like, okay, well, wasn't so bad. So ultimately, if we feel all of these triggers are too far, then if we let the Lord into our life, if we let devotees into our life, then maybe they will transform us by intrigue. This also occurs in the Bhagavatam. So, what we've been discussing over the last days are different ways in which we can trigger transformation. Remember our devotee at the beginning of the seminar who had doubts, who said, I've been around a long time, but I don't think there's much transformation taking place. I don't think anyone's really changing. Maybe to that devotee who is also within us, who has doubts, will I transform? Will I really be able to achieve the fruit of this Krishna consciousness process? We offered you some triggers. The Bhagavatam is a beautiful book because the Bhagavatam tells you not just about the activities and the character of the pure devotees, but it also tells you about their journey towards that, how they transformed. We learned about transformation by instruction. There we learned about the account of the sages and Sutta Goswami and the power of being a good listener. If you learn Bhagavat culture of how to actually hear Bhagavatam with rapt attention, as Prabhupada says, you'll transform. We talked about the account from the 6th canto of Chitraketu. Chitraketu had a roller coaster life, but he learned the art of how to turn pain into progress, how to turn problems into purpose, how to make an uncomfortable situation help him to get to a higher level of comfort. And therefore, we need to learn that art. Obstacles are not the obstacles. It's the mentality that obstacles won't come. It's the mentality that obstacles are bad. And it's the mentality that obstacles are insurmountable. Therefore, if one is wise, one learns transformation by issue. Then we learn about the account of the 1st canto of Queen Kunti, who in her prayers expresses how much she has realized this world is not a nice place. Spiritual life is difficult, but material life is impossible. To attain the spiritual world is difficult, but to stay in this material world is impossible. And therefore, when one realizes the impossibility of material life, that I just can't do it here, then one knows I have to invest the entirety of my being into spiritual life. And therefore, transformation by impossibility means when one gets the sufficient detachment to invest their heart in the spiritual process. Then we heard about the account from the 6th canto of the Bhagavatam of Narad Muni, who had a successful endeavor in transforming all of the sons of Prajapati Daksha, all 11,000 of them, by his spiritual influence, by his enigmatic words, by his razor-sharp words which cut the attachments within the mind of the living entity. Just by exposure to a very, very eminent spiritual personality, one can be transformed. Then we heard about the story of Dhruva, who made a special endeavor. He embraced tapasya. He took on a certain intensity. He went to the forest. He came out of the comfort zone. And because of his intensity, the Lord appeared before him and fulfilled not just his material desires, but fulfilled desires much deeper within his consciousness, because he was ready to go to the forest. Sometimes we think going to the forest, not so bad, it's nice. The forests of those days weren't maybe like this, like they were dangerous places. He went. Then we heard about the account of Mrigari the hunter, who was offered an incremental improvement by Narad Muni. He didn't take it. He went for the intense approach. But Narad Muni teaches us, even if you can't do that intensity, just do an increment. And don't underestimate what you can do in 10 years. And don't overestimate what you can do in 1. Just go step by step, make those vows, and go higher and higher and higher. And then the Bhagavatam gives us hope, because we realize if I'm still going to drag my feet, if I'm still not going to embrace this fully in my heart, then maybe, just maybe, I'll be fortunate and Krishna or one of Krishna's agents, Vamandev or one of the agents of Vamandev, will come into your life. And they won't ask for much. They'll just ask for 3 steps of land. And you'll think it's not a big thing. And what they'll do is they'll forcibly drag surrender out of you and trick you. And in this way, we can be hopeful that there are many ways to trigger transformation if one becomes very, very conscious, if one really embraces what is offered in the Bhagavatam. Everything is here, all the keys to achieving the fruit of Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Tat Sat. Thank you very much. So, shall we take questions? I don't know what to do. All right, it's 9 o'clock. We should take some reflections. Yes. Krishna Kshetra Maharaj.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. This seminar has been so illuminating and inspiring, and I don't know if I want to go for the last option of intrigue, but it may not be my choice. Actually, I have a question for you and Sachinandan Swami. Maybe you can discuss this, because you have nicely quoted from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kahe Sudridha Nischoy. You quoted this in connection with the Mrigari story. And I'm just recalling, because a translation of this, Vishwas, is conviction. And yesterday we heard from Sachinandan Swami that conviction can also be seen as the opposite of faith. So I think my question is directed to the both of you, if we can have a better understanding of this term, conviction. Maybe Sachinandan Swami wants to respond first.
Thank you very much for putting us together on a discussion seat. And no, this is like very. We are churning actually subject matter, and in this kind of provocative statement, the opposite of faith can be conviction. What I was meaning to say is that as we are all on the process of maturation, and whatever we are convinced can only be an interim conviction, because we are going through various states, and these convictions can stop us from moving forward to ultimate truth. That is what this idea is. Obviously, the opposite of faith is doubt. But I just wanted to make the point is that we should not be so sure about what we understand now. It's not the end result. I think, I mean, you're an older devotee and you know what you believed in the beginning of your spiritual life and what you believe now. You have more information, more oversight. So it was meant like this, this statement. Does this satisfy your inquiry? So, does this satisfy you to some degree of satisfaction? This Hari Prasad always says this.
Yes, you're giving me an incremental satisfaction. but now I want to hear what Keshava Maharaj has to say on this subject. Yes. Perhaps he has another perspective.
No, to increment Maharaj's explanation further. In Madhurya Kadambini, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur talks about the increments to Nishta. I guess Vishvash and Nishta, in some sense, we could say align. When one has Nishta, then one is convinced. But it's interesting, on the journey to Nishta, there's Anishtita Bhakti. And the first characteristic of Anishtita Bhakti is something called Utsaha Mayi. This is translated in different ways, but the usual way in which it's translated is youthful enthusiasm. So it's very interesting because someone in Utsaha Mayi doesn't actually have conviction. They're not at Nishta, but they think they have conviction. They think they figured it all out. They think it's all easy, it's all clear, there's no doubt in my mind. But what they don't understand is that very much they're rooted in Anishtita Bhakti. And therefore there's a type of shallow conviction that one has to go through before one reaches real conviction. And in this verse, Shraddha Shabde Vishvash Kohe, this Vishvash, that Krishna Bhakti, if I serve Krishna, if I do Krishna Bhakti, Koile Sarva Karma Krita Hoye, then everything I need to do in life will be fulfilled. That deep conviction is on the platform of Nishta, but this very shallow and empty conviction where one can tell the whole world, I know the truth. But maybe they don't know, is Utsaha Mayi. So this could also be. I don't know if this helps, but yes.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhava. Two sadhus, or sadhu.
Thank you. Okay, so there are hands. I think behind you, Maharaj, Venkatabhata Prabhu. Okay.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for this really amazing, cohesive presentation. So, Maharaj, my question is, in going through and giving so many illustrious examples from the Bhagavatam, sometimes when we encounter such examples, there might be a tendency to actually, kind of ironically, it's a little intimidating. And we might think, well, it worked for them, but
it's not going to work.
It's not going to work for me. So I know you like alliterations, so I was thinking about this, and I was thinking it's sort of like sometimes, or we try something and we get discouraged. So that discouragement can lead us to doubt, but more specifically, not necessarily doubt in the examples, but doubt in ourselves. So like this kind of self-doubt, like, this is good, but it's just not going to work for me.
Yeah.
And then finally, that can become a kind of a despair where we just entirely give up.
Yeah.
So my question is, how do we read these examples in a way that says, it worked for them, I have faith that it'll work for me, rather than, it worked for them, but it won't work for me?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Venkatabhata Prabhu. The only way we can get faith that these work is if we experience them in our life to a greater or a lesser extent. The triggers of transformation are eternal principles which are rooted in the Bhagavatam, and they stand true in all times, places and circumstances. And the trick of it is how to trigger these things in our life in a relevant way. So like, for example, transformation by intensity. It's like, who's going to do what Dhruva did? I mean, anyone ready? There's a forest here. You can try it out. So what I tell people, this kind of intensity, so then what I'd say is find an intensity that suits your personality so that you can maintain a consistency which will awaken your purity. In other words, what you do is you take the trigger and then you look at your life and say, let me start from where I am now. And how can I introduce this in a relevant way? And because these are eternal principles, triggers of transformation, they must work. There's no way if you interact with an eminent spiritual personality, there's no way you can't be changed, even if you're unwilling. There was one person he was being convinced to go and see Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So he was kind of like not so impressed by holy people. This is not Srila Prabhupada's son, someone else. So the person he knew, as he was taking this person to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was like, so he was like preparing him. He said, now we're going to see a saintly person. There's an etiquette, speak nicely, conduct yourself nicely. And the etiquette is when you go into the room, you bow down. So this person said, I don't bow down to anyone. No one's higher than me, no one's lower than me. I don't bow down to anyone. So anyway, his friend was thinking, oh God. Anyway, they walked into the room. And as soon as he walked into the room, the Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he just started bowing down. He just started going down. And he said, and then later on he said, I don't know what happened. I had no intention to bow down. But when I saw the sadhu, it's just something inside of me just made me bow down. In other words, when you come in the midst of a very saintly person, it will have an effect on you. So because these things are eternal principles, the idea is, how can I begin to introduce more of this into my life? Chitraketu went through the most acute issue. I mean, he never had a son for I don't know how long it was. And then he finally had one. And that son died. I mean, this is acute suffering. So we may not be able to understand transformation by issue in the acute things of this world. But at least in the small things, can we begin to see lessons? Sometimes we try to do transformation by issue when it comes to like the biggest life-shattering thing in the world. Then we pull out the Bhagavatam and say, okay, transformation by issue. Somehow this thing has shaken my whole world. Now I got to see it's really good for me. But maybe every day we undergo problems, small problems. Can we start training ourselves in transformation by issue in the small things? Then what will happen is when the bigger things happen, because you've trained yourself to see transformation by issue in the small things, you can see transformation in the big things. So, again, it has to be done in a relevant way according to where we are. I don't know if that helps. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, I see hands. Someone can just tell me when I should stop. Because there's a lot of hands here.
Hare Krishna. I just wanted to I don't know if it's a question or a comment, but you can say something about it. I sometimes feel like that devotees are very hard on themselves, because when you were explaining transformation by increment, we have these steps, and then some devotees, me also, we follow it, and then we fall down, and then we are so hard on ourselves that like, oh, we're never going to make it, or, oh, I don't think that I should go in an association of devotees because I'm so fallen. I don't think they need me, I don't think they want me. So things like that. So how to prevent that? To not be easygoing, like when we make a vow, of course we want, and it's not like, okay, doesn't matter, like we should feel a little bit guilty, but not like kill ourselves because we've fallen down, because there's another day and we can continue. So can you say something about that?
Yeah. On this we could say many things. I'll just say one thing today: just have many good friends in your spiritual life. Good friends make a big difference. When we're going through downs, when we're going through struggles, when we fall short of the ideal, but we've got good friends who accept us for who we are, who are sincere, who are strong. Rupa Goswami says, try to find friends who are sajatiya, snehasya, and ashraya. If you have people in your life who are sajatiya, they get you, they're like-minded. Snehasya or snigdasya, they have some affection for you, they actually are your well-wisher. And ashraya, they actually have some spiritual advancement which you can draw from. If you have such people in your life, it's alright, like, you'll carry on. Once I was with His Holiness Bhaktichara Maharaj and I asked him for, because whenever there's a Swami, you always have to ask a question. So I said, how can I make sure I never leave Krishna consciousness? I must have been about 14 or something. And he said, just make as many friends as you can. He said, because then even if you want to leave, you can't, because all your friends are here. This is very simple, like maybe. And later on I thought that wasn't just an instruction for a 14-year-old, it's also an instruction for a 40-year-old. Because we just need friends. Everyone needs friends. Even sannyasis need friends. That's not called for, like, I'm just saying. Everyone needs friends. So yes, I won't go into a detailed, advanced answer of how to deal with guilt. There could be many, many things to be said about that. Today I'll just say, have good friends. I think also.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So my question was related to transformation by intrigue. You said that Krishna takes away, all the possessions, and it's like a mercy on us. But
it's not like it is.
Yes, but I mean, in any varnashram or grahasthashram, and when such things happens with devotees, or we see those things happening, so how do we understand that it's a Krishna's plan and it is not happened due to our conditionings or due to our ignorance? And how
this question came up the other day. Someone asked, how do we know when we go through an issue, whether it's our karma or whether it's Krishna? It's always Krishna. Even if it's your karma, is Krishna, because Krishna is administering your karma in a perfect way. It's hard, like Krishna has two qualities. He has many qualities, but in this context, two are important. He's the supreme controller, and he's your best friend. Now, if you have someone in your life who's the supreme controller and your best friend, the natural conclusion of that is everything that's happening is happening for the best. Now, I can sit here on a seat and say that, and then when someone's life is falling apart, it's a different ball game. How do we get there to that level of realization? that requires immense depth. Therefore, you can't understand Krishna, but you can stand under Krishna. So, we can't understand Krishna. He does things in our life and it completely baffles us. And in that moment when we can't understand Krishna, we just have to stand under Krishna. You just have to take shelter. And then eventually, Krishna or his devotees reveal the plan. And until then, we patiently suffer all of our reactions, praying to Krishna with mind, body and words. That's all we can do. So you can't unravel Krishna's plan. Even Bhishma Dev said, Muyanti kavayopihi, if you try, you won't get it. You just won't understand. So. Yeah, at the back. Maybe we have to end here, I think. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for that class. I wanted clarification on the point of being comfortable with the uncomfortable. From what I understand from what you're saying, that we should not wait for that discomfort to come, but actively seek it. And something about that doesn't sit well with me, because I almost feel like, is that what we should be doing constantly throughout our entire spiritual lives, trying to find that voluntary austerity in rising early and all that? I understand that, but could you comment a bit more on that? Because it doesn't seem like a very appealing part of spiritual life.
So the first thing is, when we talk about embracing discomfort, there's 2 footnotes. The first one is, we don't do austerity just for the sake of it. It's not like, oh, okay, I'm just going to do something really austere because I want to, We do austerity for the purpose of service. So, when you do austerity for the purpose of service, it's a different taste in that austerity. There have been times when I've been like, not that I've done anything that austere in my life compared to what other devotees but there have been times when the austerity has actually become very, very sweet, because the austerity is for service. You're standing on a street in snow, in -10, and it's just like blissful. Because it's for service. Because mercy is going out, people's lives are changing. It's beautiful, and you're part of it. What a wonderful thing. And it's austere, but it's okay, because it's for service. So austerity in pursuance of service, this is an important point. Not austerity for the sake of it, oh my God, it's all right. Hare Krishna. But for service, yes, for that we can do anything. And the second thing is, not just austerity, but also steadiness, security. Srila Prabhupada uses this word, steadfast. It's a very nice word. I don't know the etymology of it, but when I hear it, what it says to me is, be steady and be fast. I don't know if there's any truth to that at all, but that's what comes to me when I hear that word. In other words, your back foot has to be rooted on the ground. And then what you do is you can lift your other foot into the air. And then when that foot goes down and that's rooted, then you can lift this one up. So yes, do austerity, but also have other parts in your life from where you're drawing strength from where you're drawing nourishment, from where you're drawing, and that gives you the capacity to do more austerity. So there will be other verses in the Shastra which will tell you what's the point of austerity, is that you don't need any austerity. And there are other verses in the Shastra which will tell you, you must, tapo divyam putra kayena sattvam, you must engage in divine austerity. So therefore the trick is how to find the right austerity. I think there's a story where Gurudas Prabhu had once gone out, there was somewhere, and he had decided to go barefoot or something like that, you know, to be austere. And Prabhupada just looked at him and said, what are you doing? There's enough austerity in this world, just don't worry about it. Like, just put your shoes on. You know, so it's like there's a certain quality of austerity that we're trying to. Tapo divyam, divine austerity. This kind of austerity is not only achievable, sustainable, but it's also exciting. We have to try and find a type of austerity where we're just like, yes, let's do it. Let's try it. This is so exciting. Why would I not do it? That's the kind of austerity. I have a counter
for that. If it's exciting, though, is it an austerity?
Austerity means it's hard. You're going out of your comfort zone. When I speak, it's an austerity for me, if I'm honest with you. Speaking is not I like to write. This is like not me, but seva, okay, austerity. But it's also exciting. I'm out of my comfort zone, but it's also exciting because I know, insignificant as I am, maybe I can do something which will help people. And then it makes my life meaningful. So it's exciting. Otherwise, why would you keep doing it? So something can be simultaneously difficult, austere, and also exciting. That I don't know, that's how I see it. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I probably am wrong, but Maharaj, you've kindly said 9:45 on this. I'm thinking, is that enough time for everyone? Because then 11 o'clock. Otherwise, we can take one more and stop. Because oh, it's 11:30. Okay. Okay. No, 9:40. Yeah. Okay. All right. Sure. Yes, in the next 5-10 minutes we'll come to the end. Yeah. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for sharing all the insights. I was wondering, like the letter you shared of the devotee, I found it quite archetypical for what's happening.
Oh, on the first day, yeah.
Yeah, and I also found that he actually saw all of you a trigger of transformation, that he woke up and realized somehow not enough is happening with me.
He was the trigger behind the seminar on the triggers of transformation. So we have to offer all respect.